Because if you're watching this video, I have a feeling you may have had those signs too. And if you do, your preparation season just ended. You just don't know it yet. All right. Yes, yes. That makes sense. I was talking to someone last week who said something that stopped me cold. And by the end of our conversation, she was actually in tears, not sad tears, relief tears, because she finally understood what was happening to her. She reached out to me because she was actually just really frustrated with the situation going on in her life right now. She was indicating, listen, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something else right now. How many of us can relate to that? And she said, I felt like this for the last 2 years, but I don't know how to know if it's really the right time to move or if I'm just being impatient because I don't feel like things are going the way that it should be going. Maybe I'm misreading the signs and everything that's going on, or indicators, as I like to say. And then, I calmly asked her, I said, do you know the story of David? And she said, yes. And I said, so you know that he was anointed king when he was 16 years old, but he actually didn't sit on the throne until he was 30. And the 14 years in between, 14 years of waiting, of preparing, wondering if it was ever going to happen. And I asked her, I said, how do you think David knew when his field season was over? How did he know when it was time to move? And she was quiet. And I was like, he recognized the signs, the same three signs that, based on listening to you, you have right now. Okay, let's go through this. I said, so let me walk you through what I told her. Is that all right, everyone? Because if you're watching this video, I have a feeling you may have had those signs too. And if you do, your preparation season just ended. You just don't know it yet. All right. Yes, yes. That makes sense. All right. The first time is restlessness. And I'm not talking about the I'm kind of bored, restless, not the I need a kind of vacation, restless. Like this is a really deep soul level restlessness that it won't go away no matter what you do. You probably can't even sleep. It's on your mind all the time. And she told me, I have been in my corporate job for the last 12 years. I make great money. I'm respected. And people ask me for advice. On paper, I should be happy. Makes sense, right? And then she says, but I wake up every morning and feel like I'm living in the wrong life. How many of us can relate to that? Like I put on someone else's clothes and I'm just going through the motions every day. She's like, I'm just going through the motions. She said, I used to love my job, but I feel like now I feel like it's suffocating me. And I was like, well, when did this start? She said it started about 2 years ago. And right about the time, she said, she started feeling like she was called to start her own business. Like there was something telling her that she needed to start her own business, right? Bingo. I told her, I was like, David felt that way too. He had been in the field for years, doing what he was supposed to do, taking care of his responsibility, but something shifted. When Goliath showed up, everybody else was really paralyzed with fear, right? Because he was a giant, if you can imagine. But what I love about the story when you read it is that David couldn't not step forward. He couldn't stay in the background. I believe he was restless and was ready to move because he asked the question when he gets to the battlefield. He says, what will be done for the man who unalives this Philistine and removes him from disgrace? And then I told her what I want you to hear. If you are restless in places that used to feel comfortable, you're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You are outgrowing this season. And that restlessness in your spirit is telling you it's time. The second indicator is everything starts to shift, right? Doors are closing, doors are opening, and it feels like it's chaos. She said that's exactly what's happening. A big project she was leading got canceled last minute. Her mentor, the person who brought her into the company, just retired. And honestly, she said, it feels like everything is falling apart. And then I asked her, what else is happening? She paused and then she said, well, 3 different people have reached out to her last month asking her if she could do business, if they could do business with her. And last week, someone that she hasn't talked to in about 3 years called out the blue and said they wanted to connect. They wanted to connect with her. They wanted to connect her with someone in their network. And I smiled and I said, that's not chaos. That's repositioning. I told her, I said, David, doors closed too. Saul, who was the current king at the time, turned on him. And David had to leave the palace. He had to leave his position. He had to leave his wife, his security, his reputation. All of that was gone. And it looked like everything was falling apart. But while those doors was closing, new doors was opening. Jonathan, the king's son, became his ally. And then he had men start following him. Opportunity shows up in the wilderness that would have never appeared in the palace. What looked like loss was actually God moving pieces into place for his next season. And so I said to her, I said, what old doors have closed and new doors? I said, when old doors close and new doors open at the same time, that's not confusion, that's transition. And then I said, here's the third indicator. This is the one that confirms it, right? She had it, David had it. And if you're still watching this video, I believe you have it too. I asked her, I said, do you know it is time to move? Like deep down, do you know? And she got really quiet. And then she whispered, yes, I've known for 2 years. I know I'm supposed to start my own catering business. I know it. She said, but every time I get close to actually doing it, every time I'm about to take that leap, fear comes in, it paralyzes her. And then she talks herself out of doing it. She said, I feel like a failure for not moving. And this is what I told her. And I want you to hear, okay? That tension, that battle between knowing and doing, that's the indicator. That's the sign. David actually had multiple opportunities to take the throne by force. Saul was very vulnerable at different times, and David could have ended it. Everyone around him was telling him, this is your chance, take it, but he didn't. Not because he wasn't ready, not because he was not prepared, not because he didn't know that he was anointed. He didn't move by force because that tension, that wrestling between knowing and doing was his final preparation. He was being obedient to what God told him. So when the time was actually right, he moved. So when you feel that being pulled and that resistance at that time, you're not stuck. You're actually standing at the edge of your next season. She looked at me and she was like, so I'm not crazy. I'm not making this up. I was like, no, you're not crazy at all. You're ready. Your field season just ended. And now it's time to step into your next season. And she cried and wept. I mean, I can imagine. Are you restless? Is there something nagging at you that you can't let go of? And you feel like everything is in chaos. You don't know what's happening. You're not crazy. Are the doors opening and closing at the same time? Do you know what you're supposed to do, but fear keeps stopping you? If you've had any of these two signs, any of these two indicators, your preparation season just ended, and it's time for you to go into the next season. Listen, it is not easy to give up something that you had, something that you worked for. And when you're leaving at the height of it, but that time was preparing you for your next season. I'm going to be having a masterclass coming up in the next couple of weeks. It is going to be in the description. Check it out. Sign up. Register. Your field season is over. Your field season is over. Let's activate your next season. I'll see you soon. Be sure to like and subscribe.